Hello, guys. I'm Heath Dunkel, and with me now, the head coach of Alcoa football, head coach Brian Nix. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Heath, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, I'm so excited about what this season looks like as we move forward, but I want to rewind for a moment, and we start with the offseason. Every offseason, you start to take a look as a coach about what you lost, what you have coming back, and what this team's identity is. And then you look at scrimmages and practices and weightlifting to really start to figure that out. But there's nothing like that game environment, getting them out there to really find out what your team is made of. What did you learn from your team after week one against the 6A powerhouse Ravenwood?
First thing I learned is that we're tough, that we're resilient. We got down by 17 points, and I told our guys, look, we may not win this football game. It's going to take a lot for us to win this football game, but you can make your season by how you respond to this situation. Just keep fighting every single play. I'm not giving up on you. This coaching staff is not giving up on you. This game's not define us. Let's fight our way back through and see what can happen. We may have a chance at this one, but it's regardless of whether because sometimes you start talking about a comeback 17 points, especially for a sophomore, that's a pretty daunting task. But when you tell them just fight your butt off every single snap, and this can make or break our season, and we were there with the chance to cut that game to a one score. We got to kick an onside kick and really made that a really competitive ball game where there was a time there it looked like we might get ran off the field. So I just think the resilience of our kids, our coaches, of keeping that positive our practices are pretty stressful. We're very demanding on our kids. On Friday night, hopefully it's the most relaxed you see us as far as the other team is putting that pressure and those demands. Now it's our job to help those kids respond to it, help us to apply the pressure. So I just really appreciated the grit and determination, and some of those sophomores and young guys, even freshmen they're playing, really grew up in that game.
We talk about grit, determination, fighting till the very end. I mean, what a great example of that in week 2 against Bearden. You've got a team in Bearden that's on the rise, in my opinion, had a really good season last year, brought another really good team back this season. Also brought in a new quarterback, transferred from Mississippi, was considered the #1 quarterback in his class out of that state before he came here to Tennessee. He had a really good game, but you guys fought. You talk about they'll break before we do, and what a great example of that when you guys go down. Scott and I, when we're calling the game, thought they're going to play it conservative. They went to overtime last week. They're comfortable going into overtime because they've been there. But then they go for 2. They take the lead, and now you guys with 14 seconds left are faced with a pretty daunting task of not only returning it, but getting yourself in field goal range. Your team really showed, I felt, a lot of resiliency, but I want to hear more from you too about that week 2 win.
I think just the biggest thing is composure, right? As a coaching staff, as players, maintain your composure. Don't let the highs get you too high. Don't let the lows get you too low. Just all you can do is think about that next snap. I got it from Gary. If you make a mistake, smile about it and go on. You don't have time to sit there and pout. You don't have time. And so, I thought it was a really good call by Josh going for it on getting that 2-point. He'd been in 3 overtimes. He's probably like, I'm done with overtime. And, a great play by the Parrott kid, man, just putting that team in. It would have been hard for us to deny that kid. When he made his mind up, he was hitting that pylon. He was hitting it. You got to love that. You got to love it. You see a kid with determination, had a little bit of adversity that he's had. But I think it's the composure of our team. We talk about special teams are huge, but, and I got this from Georgia a few years ago, the 2 biggest changers in momentum in football are PAT block and kickoff return. And Nick Saban and Coach Beamer were talking about it on game day, and he said you can tell the culture of a team by how they try to block PATs because things are going bad. Things are, they've had some adversity, and they're still trying to, of course, we blocked a big PAT against Greenville. But kickoff return in that respect, because now that team has just – basically in their mind, they've won the game, right? They've won the game because usually when kickoff return, it's either the start of the game, start of the half, or something's went wrong for you. The other team just drove it down the field and score, but you can steal momentum back. Well, in that situation, they got a personal foul penalty, not handling the situation right. Our kids responded to that, and then we were able to, because we drill so many scenarios. Coach Gossett, Coach Summers, all the guys, Coach Love that do our kickoff return team do a great job of putting different scenarios in. So they were the ones that moved Eli Graff because they showed us they were about to pop it up. So we get to move Eli Graff in that position. He does what Eli Graff does, is be opportunistic and make a play when you need it. Yeah. And we get, without that great return, without the block, you used to look, it was block great. We don't get the chance to to kick that field goal. We don't get the chance to hit it. And so I think it's just emphasizing those, football's about situations, winning situations. But if you don't maintain your composure, you can't do that. So just really proud of our team and our coaches. And you talked about the growth. That was what I told our guys after that game, if we had lost that game, I would have been just as proud, because we grew substantially between week 1 and week 2, and just every position. And it wasn't such a schematic thing. It was finding the individual things we had to identify with our guys and our entire coaching staff. There's not one position group that you can look at from week 1 to week 2 that didn't make huge strides. And that's a testament to our coaches, not just sitting there and complaining, not saying, finding ways, how are we going to get these guys better? How are we going to grow? You got what you got, right? Don't fuss about your cards. Yeah. Just play them. And I think our staff did a phenomenal job between week 1 and week 2.
Well, and so many important plays at the end of that ball game. And you talk about the composure. I mean, I'm up there in the booth when I was watching that kind of unfold. It's kind of what I thought about is when they scored that 2-point conversion and got pretty excited, and then that penalty got called on them. First thing that came to mind was when you're used to it, you act like you've been there before.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? And it was a situation where they kind of let their emotions get the best of them, and it put them in a really bad situation. They still could have won the game, but then not only did they have to kick further back, but then they kicked to Eli Graff.
Yeah,
and I believe either someone had posted the video, and I loved it, where when he caught it, you could hear someone in the background going, like, don't kick it to him. Like, why did you kick it to him?
Yeah.
And then Eli Graff, he also, I mean, such a veteran, but a smart young man who gets down the field and then gets out just in time, right, to be able to allow this opportunity. And then I think about, too, just even in my playing days, not every school is blessed with a great kicker.
That's right.
And not only have we had Bacon Louderback, but now we've got Kyron Tyson, who filled in when needed when Bacon was injured and came in games. Even when he was young, I believe his freshman year against Gallenberg-Pittman, he had to come in a big game and play. And so he steps up, and it was so cool for me to see him get that moment where he got to kind of really shine and show what he was capable of. And how important is it, I guess, for you to know that you've got not only your quarterback and your offense who can get down the field, but also when you need it, you've got a really big weapon in Kyron Tyson.
Yeah, and he's grown tremendously, and just in his confidence and that's the thing. You talk about guys being gamers. That's not his best hash. You talk about kids on the middle of the field, usually he wants it on the left hash. Like, that's where in practice he is more consistent from that left hash. And that's where I think playing multiple sports helps you. He's played 2 years in a state tournament in soccer, playing in big games in soccer. I believe that benefits you in that situation. Whereas I think if all you've done is stood there and kicked football in practice, then maybe that moment weighs on you a little more than if you played in club. I think Jameer Dean, coming in the role that he's had this year, I think playing in the state tournament last year as a freshman and how much we leaned on him in the state tournament, that's helped him in football. So I think it's a testament to playing multiple sports and how it helps you. And I think it's helped Kyron, just his, the competitiveness and the mentality. But you love him. That's an Alcoa kid. It's an Alcoa family. I remember watching that kid when he was 3 years old, pushing his mom's grocery cart around, full, and like, he's going to be something. I don't know what he's going to be, but you just love it for a kid that Alcoa means a lot to him, his family. This program's mean a ton to. I've coached uncles, brothers, just so many people, and so you couldn't love it more. And that's what we talked about. It's what Ben loved, and I asked Dyron Bledsoe and Clayton Bledsoe, and I said, I don't think there's ever been a walk-off field goal in the history of Alcoa football. I don't think there's been a walk-off win in 100 years of football. Around here, it's hard to do something for the first time. It's hard to do something that, it's never been done before, but that's pretty special to say that you're the first to do it. So it couldn't, like I said, it couldn't happen to a kid that this program and this city means so much to.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment for him. And then you moved to the bye week. And one of the things I thought about, too, is while it was weird not having a game on Friday that early in the season, I know you guys probably wanted to play, but it almost felt like it was the right time to have a bye week, because you had your first 2 weeks of very physical football with 2 6A programs. And so then you have to go and face Greenville, who's a really good 4A program. It felt like while you wanted to play, having that bye week gave you the opportunity to recuperate, to heal a little bit, and then spend a little extra time preparing for another big team. What do you think about that in regards to having that time off, and do you feel like it helped you guys moving into Greenville?
Yeah, I think looking back on it, it definitely did, and it allowed us to get healed up and just correct, once again, work on ourselves. That's another one. I got a million things I've stolen from Gary, but that's those weeks you better work on yourself. Don't spend 2 weeks working on Greenville. Spend that extra week. What do we need to refine and get better at? Don't worry about the scheme against Greenville. How can we perfect what we do? And I think as the season goes on, it's less about adding things and more about taking stuff out. Okay, look, we practiced this all fall. We ain't called this one time. Let's say by now with these two opponents, let's get rid of it. Let's quit practicing. Let's quit working it. Or, we've called this twice and it's been great. Let's work this a little more. But I think that's less adding, but refining your scheme and finding out what you're not using, what's not worked well. Look, we've called this 5 times and gotten ripped every time. This is obviously not working for us right now. And personnel, I say it to our guys, we're always looking for players. We're always looking for that guy. Oh, this kid showed me on kickoff. He went down and made two kickoff tackles. That's what Man Henry. I mean, I think he ran down on 4 kickoffs on Thursday and he made 2 tackles. Well, I probably need to play him a little more on defense. If you're out there and you're blocking and you're tackling, we're going to watch the film. Okay, he may not play as much in this position. If we move him here, he might be able to start. And so that's why we play JV games. So an open day gives you some of those opportunities to not just focus on the schematics of getting ready for that opponent, but getting yourself better. Yeah. And I think this year the schedule formulating it was important because you play 2 6A opponents, then you turn around and play a 4A team on a Thursday night. So you started looking at we had a chance to go to St. Louis and play a game. Well, you have a chance to go to Asheville maybe and play. We thought we had a team in Kentucky scheduled and that would have been doable. We were trying to Tottenville coming here last year was huge just because they came here. We knew we would have to make a return trip, but it's after those 2 extremely physical games, then you turn around on Thursday, it made it difficult, and then you're turning around and 2 weeks later you're playing West, 2 weeks later you're playing Maryville. So to be a school of with a roster of 75 guys, you just have to be conscious that you're not stretching yourself too thin. You can get you guys banged up for the games that really matter for the scope of our season and what's important to this town and important to this program. So in retrospect, I hated playing 9 games. And if we could have had that open date in one of the other weeks, it may have been more feasible to travel a little more, to do some different things. But really just looking at the whole scope of the season, it was probably, in the end, the best thing for us.
Well, you move on to Greenville, and looking at their stats go into the game with quarterback Caden Baugh, running back Carson Quillen, you knew what they were going to do.
Yep.
They were going to run the football. Quarterback was going to be a dual threat that you're going to have to look out for, and he was either going to take off with it or Carson was. And how do you stop that? And this was, as we saw in the first 2 games, teams had some success running the ball, and you guys adjusted as games progressed. And then you get into this game and knowing what they're doing. First half, had some success, going to halftime 14-13, very close ball game between the 2 teams. And you saw, like you said, that growth from your team week after week after week. And then in the second half, you hold both the quarterback and the running back to, I believe, less than a total 15 yards combined. After one had around 70 yards, the other one had 80 in the first half. What were the big keys to you guys making those adjustments at halftime that really shut the Green Devils down in the second half?
Yeah, I think it doesn't. You can't underscore Jamarius Abuhanya, big jam blocking that PAT. Because we just like I said to you, we talk about kickoff return and PAT block being a momentum changer, being the biggest momentum changers in football. If Jam doesn't block that PAT, we go in tied at halftime. That's a whole different mentality than they've really played really well and they still go in behind at halftime. Like if that game had ended, we still win. And that just, those small things are huge just from, especially when you're dealing with younger players. It's much easier for Owens, for Graff, for some of those older guys, JT, they've been around here, they understand, keep banging, keep battling, but it's harder to get younger and newer players to not ride that emotional roller coaster. So I think that, just that PAT block was big. And I think just getting ourselves adjusted, they did some good things in the second quarter. We as coaches had to go in and make a few tactical adjustments. We were on that second touchdown, we were a defender short on that side of the ball. They were running to the weak side. And so it was a game coming in, we were worried about number 1 too as a receiver. He's a kid that really emerged, they'd hit downfield throws to him against about everyone they had played, against some good teams, against Dobbins Bennett, in scrimmages against Simon nights, he'll get some athletic teams. So we were concerned with him enough to where we just couldn't ignore him. And once again, when you get with the young secondary, trying to not put them in matchup binds to where they have problems. So I think it was more of focusing on the run. We played extremely physical in the third quarter. They had 2 third and shorts, and were we able? And I think the percentages in football are about the conversion rate's about 65 to 70% for the offense. If it's 3rd and 2 or less, they're going. If you were wagering on it, you would bet the offense would convert. But Eli Owens made a huge hit in the backfield. Micah Jones and D. Sutter's made a huge hit on the second one in the backfield. Carter Cat, of course. JT, I think, everyone knows what a force he is. But if you single block him in the middle, your center's getting knocked into the backfield. And so he is. It's almost like having that great cover corner out there. It's like he's going to draw a double team. If he doesn't, you're going to have problems. But I think Carter Cowart's a guy that's really emerged, that played really well in that game for us. And he's not a huge dude by any means, but his physicality in that game really was an asset in the second half.
Yeah, really important, especially like you said with a young secondary too, of not getting lulled to sleep by the run, and then them using number one to get down the field and make things happen. And so defense made a lot of great adjustments, improved, and come away with a big time win. Now you're over 500, 2-1, moving into region play. 61 consecutive region wins. The last loss coming against CAK, I believe back in 2012. So now you face Austin East. And what is it going to take for this team to continue that streak, not only this Friday, but moving forward?
I say this to our guys all the time. If you came to practice yesterday, you should not know who we're playing. You should know if it's Maryville week, if it's state championship week, if it's the worst team on our schedule. Because that day at practice, we've got defined things we're trying to improve upon. We're trying to there's a standard here. And we're always, as coaches, trying to maintain that standard is maintained, and trying to make sure that standard is met. So people talk about our practices are hard, or we're demanding on them. Yes, we are, but that's what these players want. They want that standard. I'm like, you seniors didn't tell me you wanted to be average. You didn't say, win 5 games and win a couple of playoff games. You told me that, our seniors will tell you they want to win a state championship and they want to beat Maryville. So that's what's important to this community. It's what's important to these kids. That's important to me. If those are the things you want, then every day's got to be the same as far as your focus, your intensity level, your attention to detail. Because if you have these highs and lows in practice, that's going to carry over into the game. Your preparation must mimic assessment. I got that from a psychology textbook a long time ago. But you better prepare how you're going to perform, because when you get stressed, your mind is going to revert back to what you've done most often. So that's what I said every time as an offensive lineman. If you block high, even if it's a walkthrough, then you're taking the chance. And when you get stressed in the fourth quarter and you're tired, you're going to pop up high and that guy's going to hit us in the backfield. And so it's like just trying to ingrain those habits with guys. And I think that's the key, because it's never about that one game. It's never about that one. It's always about progressing towards that ultimate goal, getting ourselves as good as we can get. And as coaches, trying to find every little thing that we can adjust, that we can identify to make them play better. And that's how you gain the confidence of players. If you tell them to do something, give them a coaching point, they play better, then you got them. Yeah. You don't have to be loud, you just have to be right. Just give them some coaching points. If they do them, they play better, then they will buy and they'll believe in what you say. And so I think that's a challenge as a coach, to always be critiquing what are you telling them, how are you coaching them, and trying to help them gain that tactical advantage. But it's once again, it's maintaining that standard, that edge. That's the greatest thing I learned from Gary more than anything. It's that there's an edge. There's an attitude that you have to take out. If you don't take it out as a coach, you don't coach with energy and passion, you think they're going to play with it on Friday night, and this ain't going to happen. So I think more than anything in your program, it's the most important thing.
I believe it's Vince Lombardi who once said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And it's that attention to detail in the practice and not taking any rep for granted that really makes all the difference. And here at Alcoa, the standard is the standard, and I love that these guys continue every year to want to live up to it. But Coach, it was great to be able to have you up here
Heath,
for our first interview
time.
together.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, and super excited about the rest of the season. So until next time, Coach, thanks again. And guys, thanks so much for watching.